You're now listening to the Talented 10th podcast brought to you by Mosaic Management and Consulting. To learn more about Mosaic Management and Consulting, go to bshare.com/get started. When I began this fall season, one topic I said I would get to is LeBron James and the presidency of Barack Obama. Oddly enough, they have a conversation that I think everyone should listen to on HBO Max that is recorded preceding the election that I think is important. But I wanted to highlight LeBron James, and one of the questions I wanted to answer is I've been asked, LeBron has this crazy fan base that supports him at every turn, and he also has this set of critics that sometimes irrationally, most times irrationally, but sometimes strongly criticize him when he needs to be criticized. I'm here to I want to talk about why I think, even if you're neutral thus far on LeBron, you should probably lean more his way. Why I think it's bigger than basketball. I know the mantra, more than an athlete. But I admire LeBron James in a multitude of ways, and I want to highlight three of them on this episode that have nothing to do with basketball. I can talk about how great LeBron is based solely on basketball, but it's beyond it that makes him a GOAT in my eyes, and certainly someone who you have to mention in the same conversation with Jordan, even if you don't agree that he's the greatest of all time. I won't get off on the tangent, but I think that's what tees me off the most with those who choose Jordan as the greatest of all time. Some who choose Jordan as the greatest of all time act like there's no way LeBron should be in the conversation. And that's when you lose me. You can choose someone as the greatest of all time without making it seem like a guy of the stature and accomplishments of LeBron James. It's absurd to even mention. So I could go through all of that. I could go through the championships, the MVPs won, the MVPs he should have won, the teams he's led, the quickness with which he wins championships as he got into the last 2/3 of his career. Won a championship within 2 years in Miami, within 2 years of Cleveland, within 2 years of being with the Lakers. He's been a primary scorer, a facilitator, primary defender, team team defense guy like you would think of a safety in football. He's done a lot of things. He's done a lot of things on the court. But what makes you an icon has to go beyond your chosen craft. I believe very strongly that the greatest of greats, no matter if you're at the stature of a LeBron James or being the LeBron James of the life you live, it has to be translatable in multiple areas. Being great at one thing, one aspect of your life is hard enough. It's rare enough. But the greatest of greats are able to translate and transfer the same qualities that make them great in their craft to other areas in their life. And I think LeBron did that. The arc of his story is something that resonates with me. I was talking to a friend of mine, Tremaine, last night, and was kind of talking about, I didn't being able to create that mental focus. We were talking about philosophies. He's a coach, and I have philosophies, and we often bounce them off of each other and listen to each other's philosophy. And I was talking to him, and he was talking to me about how important it is to have a philosophy as a coach, and that it has to be consistent, and it has to be built on a strong foundation. You got to build teachers within that culture, that system, that philosophy, because you can't teach every single one all the time. So you got to kind of create disciples of that philosophy. And being able to create a mentality is a journey. It's a place where a lot of people don't go. And he asked me to drill down on that. And this is where I find at least a little kinship in my mind with a guy like LeBron James, and one of those three things that makes him in the pantheon of people, not just basketball, not just sportsmen, Americans, human icons. He had to develop we were able to see, because we saw him for so long, we were able to see him develop those additional layers of mentality and controlling and manipulating the mind. And I had to learn that as well. The locked in, serious, able to buckle down, focus Brendan that people may know now, that is not how I was when I was younger. I've spoken about this in other episodes, but I think it's important to reinforce. I was kind of a happy-go-lucky, free-thinking, free-spirited young man. I was more of a mama's boy. I was more of I just took the day as the day. I didn't impose my will on the day, if that makes sense. And so that first step was, and this is the example I use in talking with Tremaine, that first step was going from not being able to harness that energy, that mental focus, that mentality. You have to go from not being able to harness it, letting the day determine your mindset, and at least move to the next step. And that next step is being able to flip a switch. And I got there. I think I got there. We always talk about, or I talked about the year 2005 when I was 15. I would say that was kind of that step to being able to flip a switch mentally, energy-wise, focus-wise, mentality-wise. And that's a huge step. And that's a step a lot of people never develop, let alone at that age. And I think LeBron did too. I think he developed that switch. And a lot of people get on to him for not having a certain killer about him. But one thing I always say, you can be a killer in a lot of different ways. If I were to use somewhat of a gory visual, a lot of people like that in-your-face killer mentality. Probably more like a Jordan or a Kobe from a contemporary perspective. It's more dominant. Even a Shaq a little bit. It's more dominant. It's clear. It's more. It's masculine. That's like, shooting somebody or a missile or something. A lot more explosive, a lot more visually inclined. But there's a lot other subtle ways to be a killer too. And I think LeBron may have killed you with poison in your coffee, or may have distracted you and then you turn around and it's over. But he still was a killer. He developed a switch. that next step, at least in my life, was going from a switch, and this is the example, to a board with dials where you're able to kind of control that sensitivity a little bit more. It's not just on or off. You're able to manipulate the intensity a little bit more. And a lot of people never get to that step. And I feel like it wasn't until probably I was 24 or 25, so 10 years after, that I developed that ability, that capability, that discerning control of the level with which you're going to have that energy, that mental intensity, that mindset, that mentality. And I think that's what LeBron did when he started winning championships. And I don't know if I won, quote unquote, a championship on my level in my life, but that's that kinship I feel to his journey. And after the board with the dials, the key is to just continuously add more to that board with more dials, so you can fine tune, you can determine it with elevating levels of sensitivity and mental acuity what is required to succeed for whatever you're facing. So first you had a switch, then you added a dial, and now you're able to manipulate more and more. And I think that's what LeBron showed to us. He's won championships in different ways, with different teams, with different loads to carry. And he broke through. Which brings me to kind of the second piece of that. That was his journey on the court. But I think he took that off the court. I think when he started winning championships, we were able to see him accept and embrace those broad shoulders, not just on the court, but off the court. I speak to how he's kept his people around. I really love the fact that the people who were there from the beginning are there with him now. The most important people in his life are the same people he knew when he was in high school. And that's all the way to his wife. There's a commitment and a reverence for realness that I think he models in a way that we don't really talk about as much. We talk about we talk about Rich and Mav and those guys being around, but we don't talk about it in the form in which it models a certain behavior. The last episode I cut was with Nile, and we're part of the crew. And then I have my fraternity brothers, and I have my group I grew up with, Matthew and Adam and Rex and Sadler. 3 of the 4 I've seen in the last couple weeks, and it's incredible. But we don't talk about LeBron James and that modeled behavior enough. And I don't raise a stink about it because I don't want to jinx people, but the acceptance of those broad shoulders, seeing how clutch sports with Rich has developed, the amount of power they wield in the league right now is inspiring. It's empowering. It matters beyond basketball. It matters from an entrepreneurial spirit, from a communal perspective. Let's execute, let's build confidence in each other and rely on each other as we gain the requisite knowledge to succeed. And as things progress, help people be put in the positions to learn what they need to succeed. Truly, feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day, and teach a man to fish, and you fed him for a lifetime. That mentality is infectious. And to see it on such a public level, Spring Hill Entertainment, Mavs with uh, with more than an athlete and all of these things, from more than a vote, the shop, being involved, Spring Hill Entertainment, Space Jam 2, all these different things. You see Mav, and then with Clutch Sports and Rich, it's important to see how they're triangulating a very important part of American culture. And I think he was patient to wait to do certain things when he had the championship and was building the cachet, because he was only going to be able to do that if he won championships, if he got the ultimate credibility to be able to stand in any room and command respect, not just for the team and his own intelligence, but because of the cachet, the undeniable nature of what he's accomplished. And still, people still try and deny it. I mean, and it's not just LeBron. I mean, I'm a Russell Westbrook fan as well. And Russell's mentality since he entered the league, the surety of the things he wanted, the willingness to express himself at all costs, the mantra, why not? Why not me? Why not wear this? Why not go all out? The intensity with which he plays, the manner in which he supports his family, at least as we see, and I'm 100% confident that it's genuine. When I was still in sports management, we had players on that team, and they spoke highly of him then when he was 23, 24. The way he supports his wife and her businesses. He's involved in documentary filmmaking. The way they raise their kids. These things are important, Chris Paul. These things are important, and I think when the best player in the league is willing to model that behavior, and I'm talking about LeBron, it is a momentous decision because of all the people who want to do the same things and still do the same things are going to get an elevated eye on what they do, and it's going to become in vogue to be aware, knowledgeable, passionate, yeoman for change. And the ultimate push is the push on the only guy that's in the category with him, maybe outside of Kareem, who was a cultural icon in his own right, is Michael Jordan. You see what he's doing, committing $100 million here, helping from a voter perspective and investments here. He didn't do that. He didn't do that when he was at the same point as LeBron is in his career. It wasn't about that for him. He wanted to focus on basketball, and that's an important thing to point out in LeBron's legacy. He's taken all of those things, even when the guy that's he's most competing for the greatest of all time with didn't do it in his own career, in a far more favorable set of circumstances as it relates to social media and cancel culture and how you have to move now. And LeBron's been able to navigate that for over half of his playing career in the NBA. He's navigated personal responsibility as best you can since he was 16. And frankly, the most involved he's been politically has come in the years in which he's playing the most and winning the most. And so to carry that load off the court, that responsibility from a business perspective, that responsibility from a cultural and political perspective, while carrying the load that he carries on the court, is beyond belief. It's beyond belief. And so, I think how involved Michael Jordan is now is a contrast, because it is easier to focus just on basketball. But when you're exceeding the cultural, communal, and political importance of a Michael Jordan, who is a billionaire now, long since retired, and has the commitment, I believe him, the commitment to helping our community. When you're still exceeding even what he's doing in retirement while you're playing and winning championships, I think that says a lot about LeBron James and the mental toughness he has, which some people try and knock him for. And so that rising tide lifts all boats is LeBron personified. And that's the third and final thing. He's made registering to vote and voting cool. It's table stakes. There are people who have asked me, have I voted? That I know never even thought about politics before. That wasn't easy to do right now. That wasn't easy to do during the bubble, what the NBA players did, not just LeBron. I'm just talking about LeBron for this episode. The demands of the owners of the NBA teams in the league, which cascaded to baseball and NHL, and WNBA doesn't get enough credit either. But the demand to do so, I think it's safe to say, given how much LeBron has campaigned on behalf of Hillary Clinton in this effort with Joe Biden, that he has traditionally supported Democrats. But that's not the NBA owners don't. Owners of sports leagues don't. I just saw it's something like 20% of all of the donations made to political parties by all the sports leagues, less than 20 or right at 20% go to Democrats. So that means 80% go to Republicans. To have the power to make, using that math, and knowing that the voting campaign and the emphasis in the NBA, in the MLB, and in the NFL would largely influence and help Democrats is important. They're not telling you who to vote for, but we see on the news who really wants you to vote, who's really not fearful of a more representative democracy, who's really not fearful of what the majority of people want. We see. So that is huge. And that campaign and that awareness for 3 months, I think it was something like 94 days. I think if Joe Biden wins, will be in no small part to the very active, very focused effort and smartly of athletes to seriously engage in the political process. And there's a ton of people who have been educated and who feel and understand the importance of being involved and in voting and keeping people accountable, not just those who you don't want to see in office, but if someone like Joe Biden wins, the infrastructure in place to say, we're not just going to help put you there, we're going to hold you accountable when you're there. And look at all of the turnout from young voters and people who are concerned and more progressive in nature, and people of color. They put you there, and you're going to need them to retain your power in the next election. You better listen, you better deliver. I mean, these are when you play a part in a presidential election, let alone one as important as this, to the degree with which LeBron James has, and those in the NBA have, and those in the sports community have, in not being too cocky, not being a veneer, but actually registering people to vote, actually helping them understand how to get absentee ballots, understand the requirements for their votes to count, helping pay fines for former felons so that they can vote in key states like Florida. This isn't a scattershot approach. They put resources into the people who are on the ground. It's not just photo ops. They're doing all this stuff while trying to win a championship as well. Guys, I mean, this is next level stuff. This is the stuff of an icon. I may circle back with my dad and my brother, and we can talk the intangibles of the game, from his rebounding to his passing, to his scoring, his efficiency, his longevity, his durability, his multiplicity to his game, playing in multiple eras. I could talk about all that, but it's that plus all that I've outlined today that catapults him into iconic status. In the things that matter, too. And he's inspired me, he's inspired me to get back involved in sports management. That's the cause. I mean, I got out because I wanted to learn. I wanted to go to law school, business school. I wanted to be able to be multifaceted and to be someone who leads a holistic life, that's altruistic in nature, that teaches, that guides, that protects. And I think there's going to be a high demand for people like myself to help harness not just the icons like a LeBron James, but every player. And I'm just picking sports. But as an agent, or as someone in sports management, and as a representative, we have to understand that we need to be, and I've had this knock since I was around the first time in sports management for over 4 years, almost 5 years. We have to help build more holistic men who are not just good on the court, but off the court. Not just good for themselves, but for other people as well. That's what I want to do as I ease back into the sports management side of my life. I'm not leaving my day job. I can do both. But I want to focus on a few people. I want to focus on, like I said, holistic athletes, young men, who I can be a contributor to their development, a protector of their brand, their future, and just the overall representative of athletes with whole lives, who have holistic goals, who aren't just about the on the court, who care about things that are going to happen in the community. That's going to be the differentiator. And, I already have ideas. I know what I want that to look like over the next 2 to 3 years. I know I want to partner with universities in public policy and in public administration. So athletes that we represent or that I represent can go and say, this is what I want to work on in my community. These are the issues I care about. I want to be able to focus on solutions in this area of American life and African American life. So we can go to these universities and they have people dedicated to providing options and policies to promote the very things that are outlined from the athletes, from my clients. Because it is going to be important not just to be successful and help people negotiate and have the best deal possible based on the skills they have on a basketball court. It's going to be important to be able to facilitate the important areas of their lives as rightfully community involvement and support becomes more important. So I wanted to cap it off with that, in part because I owe that to LeBron James. I got out of the sports management business because I felt like it was all about basketball and basketball only. And I love basketball. But I wanted to be impactful on people as well. And not that we weren't. We definitely were. I think one of the most involved people in the NBA right now is Michael Conley Jr. So it was done there, and I liked how it was done because we only had a few clients and we gave them all our attention, and that's how I want to move forward in my next endeavor. But I got out because I wanted to learn how, not that it wasn't there, I wanted to learn how to be a better facilitator of that life. And law school and business school and understanding political affairs, understanding business at the city and state level, understanding these things will help me be a better representative of holistic men who have impact on multiple areas and all areas of their life. And so for me, in this season where we're talking about community citizenship, voting, I want you to vote. I want you to vote. I want you to check out the episode with LeBron James and Mav Carter and President Barack Obama. But when November 3rd happens, whether it goes our way or not, stay engaged and keep demands high. Your energy has to be rewarded. And if it's not, there needs to be consequences. But let's stay engaged. Don't hand power over to people and then leave the room. When you help someone be the leader of the power structure, the power circle in a room, you sit down at that damn table. And that's what we as people need to do. That's what guys like LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul, all those guys and all the others, that's what they need to do. That's what the NBPA needs to do. That's what people in college sports need to do. I see it. I see people care about a lot of things that once was too taboo to do. Shut up and dribble. No. And we shouldn't do that in any of our professions. I don't do that at my day job. I don't just shut up and do. If I feel passionately about how something was done, I don't just shut up and go about it. People respect that. People respect that. I want to end this episode with something I recorded back in around the George Floyd situation. So it's going to sound like it was old, but because it was, but it's something I wanted to release. And I appreciate Pro Kid Ryan for developing the new theme music. I don't know if you hear it in the background, and he helped mix the spoken word that I wanted to release as well. So go vote if you haven't. Continue that passionate intensity following the election. And don't let people create a negative narrative for ulterior motives. That's what I wanted to end with. I fear that sometimes we get sucked into the Skip Baylesses and all of that. They don't understand the importance of the legitimacy of a guy like LeBron James. in history. They see it as pitting things together. It's just TV, whatever. But we as people got to value guys like LeBron. And it's okay. You don't have to love LeBron from a basketball perspective. And we can be fun and we can be sometimes irrational. It's no big deal. He's not a snowflake. He's been getting this for over 15 years. But what I would say to people is when you refuse to give a guy his flowers and you're too intensely irrational about what he's done, what you're actually doing is chipping away at the cachet and the ability for him to continue to get more and more done with more and more support. And I feel good that most people see it in a basketball context and don't let it discount what he does off the field, off the court. But I know that happens too. I know that people are able to stir up a hate for the guy that actually prevents some of the positive things for the community to have as much impact as it can. And one reason why I said I hope even if you are on the fence with him, you lean more his direction is because he doesn't need charity when it comes to his legacy. But the more we look at it in a rational context, when someone steps out on a limb and is as involved and is sitting in those rooms that some of us will never even know exist, let alone be able to sit in as well, the strength of who he is and the power of his impact, I feel comfortable with his intentions. And when I feel comfortable with someone's intentions, I want to give them as much cachet, as much support as they walk into those rooms that we'll never be in as possible. And I think he's earned the right for us to not unfairly discount what he does. Like I said, I don't care as much on the basketball side, although you need to give him his damn respect. Just know that craziness impacts off the court as well. And I've been very proud of him and what he's committed to for a long time. And the more and more people that can see him in the same mythology as people see Jordan, given where he's channeling his energy, I think we as a people will be very, very, very happy that we lined up in support as soon as we possibly could. I'll leave you with the spoken word as on the tail end of this, but as always, there's more to come, and I'll see you soon. Go vote.